a mi hija. Y ustedes no se imaginan cómo nos las entregaron.
If anything ever happens to me, it was him. That's what Sylvia Jasmine told her best friend in a voice note. Just days later, Sylvia's burned body was found dumped near an oil pipeline in Veracruz, Mexico. The only way her mother could identify her will make your stomach turn. And the person who gave that chilling voice note to the police, her best friend, Andrea. At first, Andrea was seen as a hero. She helped organize protests and cried with Sylvia's parents. But 1 year later, Andrea was arrested too. Now, authorities are saying not only that she was a witness, but she helped end Sylvia's life. She lured her to a sickening death. And what came next turned an already horrific murder into a tale of betrayal, obsession, and corruption so twisted you won't believe who helped Aldo escape, or how far Sylvia's mom had to go just to keep the case alive. This is the fake friend who lured her bestie to get killed and burned by her ex. The last time Sylvia Jasmine Armens texted her mom, it was something so normal it hurts. She had just gotten a pedicure, pale pink polish. She sent a photo to her mom and told her she would be home for dinner. Her mom replied that the pedicure looked amazing and she couldn't wait to see her. That was August 14th, 2019. Her phone went silent not long after. By morning, she still hadn't come home. Her mother started calling, texting, asking, "Are you okay?" Sylvia's phone replied, but the replies felt wrong. They were short, cold, and missing the emojis she always used. Her mom knew from the get-go that this was not her. By nightfall, she called everyone she could think of, friends, relatives, even Andrea, Sylvia's closest friend since kindergarten, but no one had seen her. And the next day, the truth surfaced like a horror movie come to life. A Pemex cleanup crew found something dumped besides a fuel duct near the highway. At first, it looked like garbage. Then they got closer. It wasn't garbage. It was human remains burned almost beyond recognition. While one worker rushed to vomit, another rushed to the phone to call emergency services.
Aquel 15 de agosto del 2019, tras varios días desaparecido,
What the police found was so brutal they could barely call it a body. It was a torso charred to ash. Nothing left of the face, no arms, no hair, no skin either. Just 2 legs untouched by fire. 2 legs and those pink-painted toenails. That's all Sylvia's mother had left to recognize her. Her worst nightmare confirmed with a pedicure photo. But that wasn't even the worst part. The forensics team found a bullet lodged in Sylvia's skull, meaning someone shot her style. And even then, the coroner said that wasn't what killed her. She was wrapped in flammable plastic bags and set on fire while still alive. The smoke inhalation and unspeakable burns were what ended her life. This was cruel beyond words, and no one could think it was a tragic accident.
que fue cruel, salvaje y cobardemente asesinada. Ustedes no se imaginan.
The police immediately ruled out the idea that this was a random act, too. The level of planning and brutality screamed of something personal. That's when they turned to her inner circle, to her ex, and to her best friend because someone had known where she was going that day. Someone had watched her walk out the door, freshly pedicured, full of life, and decided she wouldn't come home. And the people Sylvia trusted most were about to become suspects. Sylvia Jasmine Armendariz was smart, accomplished, and unshakably kind, but even women like her, women with options, goals, and a bright future, still find themselves tied to men like Aldo Aiden Casteller Garcia, a PMX worker in his early 30s. Aldo was built just like a CrossFit junkie and surrounded by the same social circles Sylvia floated through. Some say they met at work. Others say Andrea, Sylvia's childhood best friend, introduced them through her gym. However it started, it didn't take long for Sylvia to see who Aldo really was. He was a textbook narcissist with a terrible ego. First, there was the love bombing and the promises of endless affection. Shortly after, there was only jealousy and an obsession with controlling her. And when she fought back for her freedom, he got so angry. She was scared for her life. People close to Sylvia say that she ended things because Aldo couldn't handle her independence. He hated how confident she was, how close she was with her family, how she said no without fear. And when she left him, he lashed out in the most cowardly way by isolating her. Her daughter's ex-boyfriend had blocked her phone. Yeah, he even blocked Sylvia's mother as if cutting off contact could erase the damage he had already done. But Sylvia wasn't stupid. She felt the danger coming long before it struck. That's why she recorded an audio message and gave it to her most trusted person, Andrea Jara, her best friend. In the recording, Sylvia explained the level of Aldo's threats. Sylvia Jasmine herself stated that she had received death threats from her ex-boyfriend. She also said that if something ever happened to her, he was the one responsible. Andrea promised to keep it safe and to give it to the police only if something went wrong. And when Sylvia's body was found burned and dumped, Andrea did exactly that. She handed the audio to Sylvia's parents, and then her parents took it straight to the authorities. That voice note changed everything. The case had gone from a possible kidnapping to a premeditated execution. It painted Aldo not just as a suspect, but as a predator that Sylvia had feared in her final days. Still, when the police went to find him, he was already gone. He didn't wait to be named. He didn't try to defend himself. He just disappeared. And his entire family claimed that they had no idea where he was. That's when it became obvious someone had helped Aldo run. And if Andrea had been holding Sylvia's final warning all along, why did she wait to speak? Because what came next, who Andrea really was, and what she might have done would make Sylvia's murder even harder to forgive. Andrea Yarrow was more than a friend to Sylvia Jasmine Armenias. She was family. They met in kindergarten and pretty much spent their entire lives together. Sylvia called her a sister. And when Sylvia vanished, Andrea acted like one. She marched beside Sylvia's mother, printed flyers, helped organize vigils. To many, Andrea was the reason the case gained momentum. The sole reason the police turned their full attention to Aldo. But then, almost a year after Sylvia's death, the story shattered. On December 3rd, 2020, Andrea was arrested and accused of helping to orchestrate Sylvia's murder. It wasn't just a shock, it was a betrayal that hit as hard as the crime itself. According to prosecutors, Andrea wasn't just an innocent bystander. She was allegedly involved with Aldo behind Sylvia's back. Suddenly, everything she had done, the tears, the marches, the cooperation, took on a sinister new light. Everyone's image of Andrea had just cracked in half, but she had a defense ready, a calm, precise timeline of everything she did that day. She said she'd been at a spa in Malin around 4 p.m., close to where Sylvia was getting her pedicure. Then she remembered she'd forgotten her purse in her mom's car, so her mother, Lorena, brought it to her. They both went home. Later that evening, Andrea went out to dinner with a friend named Oscar and his father. Around 11 p.m., they dropped her back at her house. Nothing suspicious, right? And yet her phone said she was standing at the crime scene. Cellular data placed Andrea right next to the Pemex dump site. Her phone pinged alongside Aldo's and Sylvia's, all three in the same location when the murder occurred, and her device stayed near the burn site for hours. In other words, she wasn't just passing through. She lingered, or worse, she participated. Then came the witnesses. One protected witness claimed Andrea and Aldo were secretly dating. If that's true, then Andrea threw away a lifelong sisterhood for a possessive narcissist who ran at the first sign of consequence. That kind of betrayal isn't just cruel, it's pathetic. But let's not get carried away. This rumor hasn't been confirmed by other sources. Another witness said that they saw Sylvia being forced into the car by a man, and Andrea was standing right there. Others described a tense confrontation between all three, Sylvia, Andrea, and Aldo, just moments before the murder. One final witness told authorities they saw a man and a woman moving Sylvia's body into a red car. That was enough for prosecutors to move forward with charges of feminine or femicide. And the worst blow to Andrea's credibility came down to time. The witness said this happened on August 19th. The problem, Sylvia was murdered on August 14th. That timeline mismatch cracked open the prosecution's case, but it also revealed something darker. If the witness was right, someone moved Sylvia's body days after the murder, and that someone might have been Andrea. This is how Andrea went from Sylvia's trusted confidant to Sylvia's co-accused killer. And the betrayal still echoes, because Sylvia had no idea what she was walking toward that day, and that someone she called a sister might have opened the door to death. Andrea's family pushed back hard, calling the timeline inconsistent and the witnesses unreliable. They said Andrea's only crime was refusing to falsely testify against Aldo, that she was caught in a corrupt system looking for a second name to blame. But for Sylvia's family, it was enough. Andrea's phone betrayed her, but what the system did next might have betrayed both of them. Because if Andrea was lying, why were prosecutors rushing? And if she was innocent, why was Aldo still free? When Andrea Jara was convicted of femicide, the shock didn't come from the verdict, but from the timing.
La mejor amiga de Sylvia también es detenida, Andrea N., a quien ya la sentenciaron a 70 años de prisión por su participación en este feminicidio.
Sylvia's family had waited over a year for justice. Then, almost overnight, Andrea was arrested, charged, and sentenced to 70 years in prison before the man everyone thought pulled the trigger even saw a trial. The courtroom was tense. Andrea showed little emotion. Her family, on the other hand, cried throughout the whole trial. And the judge made one thing clear. The evidence, particularly the triangulated phone data and witness statements, was overwhelming. But to Andrea's loved ones, it was a rushed scapegoating. Her parents, especially her mother, Lorena, claimed the state had failed to investigate the real killer properly and instead punished Andrea because she refused to lie. According to them, prosecutors pressured Andrea to say, "Aldo killed Sylvia." And when she refused, insisting she hadn't seen the crime and therefore couldn't testify to it, she became the next target. Her lawyers pointed to irregularities from day one. They said that the judge dismissed new geolocation records showing Andrea had been dining across town. They questioned the credibility of the protected witnesses, especially the one who said he saw Andrea and Aldo move Sylvia's body on August 19th, 5 days after the murder. But that didn't matter in court. Not in Vera Cruz. Andrea was guilty, and she will most likely be rotting in prison. For Andrea's parents, it's an endless nightmare. And for Sylvia's parents, that sentence was a bomb on a wound that would never close. Because even as Andrea's life was locked away, the most glaring question remained. Where was Aldo? For over a year, the man Sylvia had feared, recorded, and warned about was nowhere to be found. According to multiple reports, he hadn't just disappeared on impulse. Aldo had taken a month off work. He shut down all social media, and allegedly, he had help. The trail went cold for months until a random call to the police about a drunk man causing a disturbance changed everything. It was July 14th of 2020. A man was reported shouting, visibly intoxicated. When officers tried to detain him, he pulled a knife and tried to run. They brought him in right away, and when they ran his name through the system, the officers gasped. It was Aldo. He had been living quietly in a modest home, laying low until someone slipped. And when he was questioned, his response was colder than anyone could believe. At first, Aldo, 32, claimed that he did not know the girl. He called her that girl, as if she'd been nothing. Authorities booked him for femicide, an evidence tampering, citing the condition Sylvia's body was found in and his year-long disappearance as damning proof of guilt. Finally, it seemed the case was on track to deliver full justice. But that was just on the surface because, as of today, Aldo's trial still hasn't happened. He had lawyers, he had connections, he had what Mexico calls amparos, legal appeals designed to stall proceedings indefinitely, and one by one, they worked. 5 years after Sylvia's murder, Aldo has still not been sentenced. While Andrea is serving 70 years, Aldo is playing the game. Still, Sylvia's parents are nowhere near done protesting this. Yeah, they're even offering $250,000 with the police's help for any information that could lead to Aldo's conviction. And as they were slowly beginning to think justice was close, a new revelation shook the entire case. Because the judge who sent Andrea away for 70 years, he was just arrested. His name was Floren Nikico Hernandez Espinosa, the judge who oversaw Andrea Jara's trial, the man who declared the evidence overwhelming. And in March 2023, he was taken away in handcuffs. The charges: accepting bribes to release men accused of homicide and kidnapping and violating the privacy of minors. Yeah, that bad. According to media reports, Judge Hernandez had a long history of corruption. Allegedly, he'd be quietly freeing violent criminals in exchange for money, all while posturing as a man of justice in high-profile cases. For Andrea's family, it was confirmation of everything they'd said from the beginning, that she'd been railroaded, that her trial was political, and that this judge never cared about the truth. Only power. They filed an appeal almost immediately, citing judicial misconduct and calling for Andrea's sentence to be thrown out. But despite the arrest, the damage had already been done. Andrea is still behind bars, and Aldo's trial is still getting stalled. Sylvia's mother, after fighting for justice for over 3 years, said it best: "I finally saw the light. Now I see more rot."
Teníamos la esperanza. Empezó como un termómetro así grande. Y poco a poco se fue bajando.
Because what good is a conviction when the one handing it down was rotting from the inside? And the problem is, he is far from the only one. Sylvia Jasmine Armandiaz didn't just die because of one man. She died in a country where femicide is routine and justice is rare. Her mother, Sylvia Alpuc Dennis, knows this better than anyone. Since the day her daughter's body was found burned, she hasn't stopped moving. Her marches, posters, and virtual protests are grief turned into hope. And still, 5 years later, she walks the streets begging for justice. She isn't feeling an ounce of progress.
Y 5 años en que la señora Silvia ha estado penando, ha estado haciendo manifestaciones, ha estado haciendo movilizaciones y lamentablemente, como ella dice, pareciera que mañana la justicia para sí.
In Veracruz, Cruz, where Sylvia was murdered, the impunity rate for femicide is 89%. That's not a typo. Nearly 9 out of 10 cases go unresolved, unpunished, and ignored. Her case was supposed to be different. Sylvia had everything the system usually lacks: evidence, witnesses, a named suspect. But instead of swift justice, her case was dragged through years of delay, contradiction, and corruption. Andrea was imprisoned, and people are still unsure of her level of complicity. And Aldo remains unconvicted, shielded by legal loopholes and endless amparos. Sylvia's mother no longer believes the system is broken. She believes it's designed this way. I feel that the turtle is already beating the rabbit in a race. Yes, I use this metaphor, and I feel that it is the truth. The prosecutor has already been very slow in the results of the tests on the alleged perpetrator. This is how slow things move when it comes to murdered women in Mexico. Her daughter's case has become a symbol, not just a betrayal by people Sylvia loved, but of the larger betrayal by the country meant to protect her. Andrea may or may not be guilty, but Veracruz's system was never built to find out the truth. It was built to delay it until people give up. But Sylvia's mother won't. She's 68 years old, still taping up flyers, calling out politicians, and showing up. But justice doesn't cry back. Sylvia is still dead. Her killer still hasn't faced a judge. And in a state where a woman is murdered every day, this case has become just another headline waiting to fade. So, Let's not pretend this ends with a verdict, because for the women of Mexico, the war is still on and the system is still winning.